All right, guys. So I think we have the next speech right now. It's panel discussion, and the title of it is "Advertising in Hyper-Casual Games in 2021: Secrets, Insights, Recommendations from Experts." I think moderator Yaroslav will continue. So Yaroslav, you're welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm Yaroslav Kot. I have an honor of being moderator at this wonderful panel with its great experts, and we will talk today about monetization and advertising of hyper casual games and trends. Where's it all going to after all this? There's this very difficult and surprising year of 2020, and we have here Shalom Mikaeli from Fyber, MD, EMEA. We have here Alexander Palacci, co-founder of BidShake, and we have Carol, General Manager at Tenjin, with background in data science, and we already today presented earlier their awesome benchmark report on hyper gaming industry. And trends, and Joby Tan, Global Head of Business Development at InMobi. You probably heard a lot of about the companies where these people are presenting. And so today we will be talking about advertising, monetization, trends, tendencies, and your personal opinions. So the first question would be, what are the last trends that you have noticed recently in user acquisition and ad monetization, specifically for hyper casual games? And that question perhaps will go to Carol and Joby, I think.
Yeah, I can start. So for people who don't know us, Tenjin, we are doing analytics and attribution and work with a lot of big hyper casual games. So we see some of the trend that's happening across all our customer. In 2020, I would say one thing was customer being more and more aware that they really need to diversify the UA channel they're working with, like not depend too much on one. I would say there's two events that trigger this behavior. One is the fraud allegation with Mintegral, which was one of the top 3 channel. And in our benchmark report, you'll see that they're still in the top 10. Then people realize, oh, maybe we were relying a bit too much on them and decided to distribute their spend across other bigger channel. And also just the construction of this kind of monster company that has studio, ad network, mediation, and now even attribution with the recent announcement of Uploading and Adjust acquisition. People kind of wonder, can they trust them? And do these people know more about their own user? And of course, don't want to only rely on one of these big companies for their UA or their monetization. So this is one of the trends we saw. Also related to that, they invest more and more in their BI stack, in their data infrastructure, because they want to understand what's going on. Like when Iron Source of Uploading have feature like ROAS optimization, at first is great and they want to use it, but they also want to understand how this is calculated and can they just trust it, or they actually just want to monitor that the span and the bid goes in the right channel. So that's for the US side. And for the monetization side, we saw a bit more adoption of programmatic bidding, but mostly we also see the hyper casual studio going in 2 different directions. One is being even more hyper casual, like even scaling games that have very low like LTV, but just because they can get even lower CPI, they go into this game, even though the game don't have the same retention that they used to need before. While other customers go in the opposite direction and try to diversify and invest in more casual games, so monetize through in-app purchase and subscription, and use cross-promotion through the hyper casual game, and then transfer the user to these more casual games. That's the other trend we noticed.
Joby, do you have anything?
Sounds great. Sounds great, Carol.
Okay. Alexandra, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a bit on what Carol was saying. On the UA side, you mentioned that people are diversifying their UA channels, and we're also seeing people going out of the traditional, not completely out, but exploring less traditional types of channels. We really saw a boom in influencer marketing for hyper casual, just because it's a very broad audience, so it really fits like the hyper casual type of users that they're looking for. And I would say that the second thing, and it relates to what you say regarding, the BI, it's there has been an increasing level of sophistication across big hyper casual publishers, but also there are more and more tools available for the smallest app developers. So one of the trends that we're seeing is that those guys who would develop their games and then go to one of the biggest publishers to promote it and publish it are actually deciding to do it themselves. So we're seeing, smaller game developers going into self-publishing, just being equipped with the right tools, and they feel that they have more confidence to manage their UA monetization, and I believe it's going to be a growing trend as well.
So the more and more tools, the easier is for India developers to go out there for themselves and work without publisher, basically avoiding. And it's a good thing because, as far as I know, the prognosis is that ad cost will go down, and there will be less monetization from that part.
Yeah.
So wonderful. So let's talk to indie developers, because a lot of people who watch us and are indie developers, a lot of people who are in this business, and we want to help them to understand what is mediation. Why do you think it worth working with mediation, and what kind of companies would you suggest for young developers, for not beginners, but for those who are starting their solo trip, so to say, on the hyper casual game market?
Sure.
Okay, Shalom.
So the mediation, just very, very briefly, so Shalom is from Fyber. Fyber is a mediation company. We're 10 years in the business of mediation, and basically the idea of mediation, as you asked, just to give a little bit more content, is the ability to monetize by advertisements your application with different networks, with different advertisers that are coming into one spine of platform, and basically mediating by one network, another network as a waterfall. And this mediation was known as a waterfall mediation during the last decade. And I'm happy to share that, as this industry is getting more advanced and more mature, then we see at the beginning of this decade more and more bidding supported mediations, in which enable more networks create bidders in which they are bidding their impressions in each and every on each and every application, each and every user, decreasing the latency, increasing transparency, creating a much simpler operational workflow for the publisher that eventually results with more competition and more revenues. So if indie developer needs to choose today a mediation, they need to choose somebody that they can trust. They need to choose somebody that can actually understand their needs. And their needs are not necessarily only at the bottom line revenues. Yeah, there are revenues, but in addition to that, mediation companies grew to support additional aspects like, for example, very granular A/B testing that enables those publishers to do specific tests in different regions. And by doing so, they're able to learn about the audiences, so many things that enable them to develop and grow their applications in the future in a way that can tailor to those needs. So this is in general about mediation, and we see that there's a big gap between how mediations were working the past decade on a waterfall and how they're much more efficiently working this decade. Even though all the networks are supporting bidding, we see that it's a momentum that goes and creates more and more traction, and we will see more and more bidders coming into the programmatic space during this year.
Thanks, Shalom. Let me add to that. Hi, everybody. I'm Joby from InMobi, and I had business development for the gaming team over here. We're one of these networks that work with companies like Fyber, who's been an excellent partner throughout the years. What we've been seeing throughout this year and a half is these developers and indie developers, large studios, small studios, using all types of ad units to help monetize these hyper casual games, right? Be it video, the interstitials, reward video, and banners. We've actually seen a resurgence of banners in the year 2020, which is fantastic, right? When I started this whole journey in 2011, banners were there and they're back and they're kicking, right? It's amazing. It's one of those non-intrusive ad units, like something similar to you'd see in a football match, right? The game's going on the entire time. You see the ads on the shirts, the sides of the banners, and you can either click it or not. The game's not interrupted. And the longer the user session, the more ad inventory, especially for brand advertisers. So it's definitely something that we've been seeing a lot, and users, new developers, studios use mediation to be able to work with all different kinds of networks, like our network, to help add to the monetization.
Just to add on top of the Joby, 100% agree. And another thing is, if we connect into the previous question and to hyper casuals in specific, if app developers building their applications today, they need to pay attention that not they build their application today in different circumstances, because they are not only building their applications to support rewarded video, banners, and interstitials, but we see also additional trends of rewarded interstitial, which creates a better engagement between the publisher, the user, and the ad. We see, as Joby said, we see in-app advertising that gets more and more traction. And we see also audio advertisements. You're playing the game and then you hear something for 5 seconds. I think that these three dimensions, we will hear more and more about them in the future as the future trends of the in-app advertising system, and also very specifically for hyper casuals.
Yeah. Anything else? Well,
I want to add something also why hyper casual, I highly recommend them to work with mediation. It's also because of a data access. Like if you work directly with monetization channel, you don't have access to user level estimated ad revenue or impression level estimated ad revenue, while now more and more the mediation are releasing this piece of data, which highly add to your data capability and your bidding strategy in the future.
Yeah. And that leads to our next question. All this information leads us to the question about user acquisition and the challenges. What are the main challenges of user acquisition teams that they are facing when it comes to hyper casual games, and what are the advertising keys to turn a hyper casual game into a profitable hit? How about Alexandra? I think it was one of yours.
We'll start on that one, as BidShake is a UA automation platform. And first of all, the main goal of hyper casual UA teams is to reach scale while maximizing the average revenue per user with users that have a very short life cycle, okay? And this combination of scale and reactivity is really the challenge here. Because when a UA manager, you need to launch campaign across multiple networks, multiple geos, and so on. Then you need to monitor those campaigns in all kinds of dimensions. And then you need to frequently adjust these campaigns at the most granular level. And this is the challenge, right? When you have only like 2 hands and 1 brain, it's very complicated to do so at scale. So based on that, I believe that the key is data-driven decisions at scale, okay? And this relies on 3 main pillars: data, intelligence, and automation. What I mean by that is, in terms of data, you need to be able, as Carol said, to accurately get an overview of your data, and especially of the ad revenue data. Once you have that, you need the intelligence, okay? You need to be able to build revenue prediction models that are going to tell you very fast, based on the data that you have, what is the expected revenue of a user, and that are going, to take decisions based on those predictions, okay? Once you know what is the expected revenue of a user, you know how much you're ready to pay for that user, and you know what is the change that you need to make on your campaign. So that's the second pillar, that's the intelligence. And the third pillar is the automation. You have all of those campaign changes that needs to be applied, and we're talking about thousands or hundreds of thousands of campaign changes. You need an automation tool to allow you to pull all of those changes and to streamline them automatically across all of the different ad networks and all of the different campaigns, okay? So at the end of the day, you want to get to a stage where you are well set up to get the data into your BI. You apply your own prediction models on top of those data, and you calculate the decisions that you want to make on your campaigns. And then you streamline all of those decisions at scale into all of the different networks, okay? And this is what we call here the successful loop. And this is how, you know, the top game publishers who do Crazy Labs, Quali, to mention a few, are working. So I really do believe that this is the key: data, intelligence, and automation.
Anyone else has anything to comment on that? So we're going ahead. Alexandra is very emotionally transferring our more data than the usual speaker, using her communicative skills. And now the question for everyone, of course, right now it's a big choice for a developer at the beginning. They need to choose. What do you think about iOS 14 privacy features and how they will affect advertising in the upcoming year? Okay, who would like to share their ideas about?
I can start.
Okay.
So I think iOS 14 is on everybody's mind, and now you can't ignore it anymore. Like, if some people were a bit late in thinking about it, thinking about conversion value, now everybody's really like waking up and deciding that, oh, okay, yes, now we need to get ready and start sending conversion value and integrating the new SDK in all our apps. It's really going to come like in the next 1 or 2 months, if not sooner. And of course, it's going to change everything. Like, the way you bid is going to be different because the data access is going to be different. You won't have granularity as like creative anymore. So what we see is that it can actually be an opportunity for indie developers, because if the big studio had a very proven methodology to bid very granularly on iOS, it won't work anymore. So everybody will be on the same level and will have to relearn to optimize their campaign with conversion value. So if you are one of the first network who can map your conversion value to events that are very relevant to your app and learn to optimize with that, you can be one of the first to learn this new methodology and catch up with the bigger studio.
I will nuance this a little bit, because I believe that one of the advantages that hyper casual, you know, the big guys will have is the data, right? Those guys already have a very large base of users, and this will kind of give them a edge. Sorry, but I believe, yes, it will have an impact on hyper casual. I think how big the impact is going to be, I don't think anyone has the answer to that today. There is a lot of uncertainty, and you know, everyone is trying to come up with an opinion. But at the end of the day, we don't really know how mobile attribution is going to react to it. So, yeah.
I think everyone is looking for ways to offset the impact, right? Very similar to what we're seeing online on every website with the cookies and accepting them. Developers and publishers would be experimenting with ways to soften that message that's shown to the user while they opt in for the IDFA, right? But the next step will be to attempt to improve the monetization of that consented traffic, and I think that's what we're looking to do. Today, Apple, with this whole exercise, with all this change, they're looking to solve for performance advertising and UA. That's app to app. The app to web, I don't believe we'll see an impact there. It'll allow brand advertisers campaigns to continue. Fortunately, InMobi continues to be brand advertiser focused, which is fantastic. With over 85% of the ad spend spent on brand advertisers. So I believe that will continue and become to be, I think, a growing force of monetization, so that we can keep working with these brands where, the fingerprinting is not as relevant.
Well, I can share that when it was introduced around 6 months ago, Fyber, we arranged a consortium, and we brought the leaders in the space, including publishers, DSPs, networks, attribution platforms, and also mediations. And we were actually thinking as an industry what we need to change, how we need to adapt as an industry. And evidently, without IDFA, without the parameters that exactly about the users, you have to invent. You have to come with a new scenario. And basically, the conclusion that we came, all of us, all those leaders in the industry, is that we need to adjust to new parameters. And new parameters are moving from the IDFA parameters into the contextual parameters. Like, for example, knowing the battery life, like the Wi-Fi strength, the available disk space, things that about the device that are not necessarily identifiable about the user. And we have seen that by testing, by the DSPs testing with the time, advancing their algorithms, they have managed to monetize properly the LAT traffic. And while we don't know what will happen in March or April, whatever iOS 14 will kick in very soon, I know, we know for sure with lots of hopes and lots of training and understanding that those parameters are valuable, and DSPs and programmatic buyers are able to bid according to them and actually maintain a good ROI, good ROAS for their advertisers with great performance. And definitely refer to Joby's answer over here, brands. We do see more. We do believe that this is also the opportunity for more and more brands to come in and to get more exposure into the mobile industry. And I think that this is also something that we will see more this year.
Oh, awesome. Wonderful. So finally, we're coming to become a medium of the future. And that brings us to the next question, which is about the future, of course. How do you see the evolution of hyper-casual for 2021? Which things would you like to profess, so to say? What would you like to foresee, to suggest? Let's bet on something. I know we already know that this year would be probably as unexpected as the previous year, and you can't plan anything these times. But what wild suggestions would you have? Okay.
I think we could bet on continuing to see more consolidation, right? A lot of large studios are buying up these smaller studios, and even medium-sized studios are all around the globe. And players are fighting for that audience. They're shelling out huge amount of UA dollars, fighting for that audience. A lot of that audience is still here in the United States. And it makes sense. That's where large eCPMs are coming from, and it's just where the money to be made is. But I think this year, with more and more devices globally, people adopting a lot more of the Android platform, that audience is going to move outside of the United States, especially in Southeast Asia and APAC, where those are mobile first countries. A lot more of those audiences will start living there, with Japan and LATAM coming into play as well. Also large mobile first countries. I think that's where the audience will be. So both brand advertisers and performance advertisers have a lot more to fight for, and I think that's where it's trending.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you on the concentration part. I think there is going to be much more fluidity in the game genres, right? You have some more traditional, casual, mid-core games that are now becoming hyper-casual, some hyper-casual games that are turning more into casual. And I think this is being reflected, in the type of acquisitions that you're seeing. I believe that there will be more IP-based games that are going to enter the hyper-casual space. And, the Zynga, Rollic acquisition kinds to show those early signs of this trend. So I think that the indies have a bright future and some good opportunities on the way to partner with the biggest and more traditional game companies, and to bring hyper casual and into those companies.
Yeah, I agree. And as we mentioned earlier, I think this acquisition will also encourage more and more indie studio to get started to enter the hyper casual space. And they might go the self-publishing road. I think effectively we have more and more tools, and the studio who would be able to have their data straight, understand their data, and start building automation like Alexandra described it earlier, would be the one that would get successful.
Definitely agree with consolidation, but I think that if we're speaking about future and hyper casual, we shouldn't forget iOS 14, and that means that there are several implications in the industry, and of course, hyper casuals are part of them. If eventually prices will go down, then what will that say about hyper casuals? Hyper casuals are buying broad users. So if the prices will go down, not necessarily will impact the hyper casuals, because they're not necessarily looking for the user that will buy an item. And if eventually the price of buying a new user will be more expensive than retaining a user, then maybe the hyper casuals will have to focus on retention. And retention meaning, what does it mean means retention? So they would like to continue making sure that the users continue playing the games within maybe decreasing the amount of ads per users, maybe creating a new meta games. In those meta games, the users are basically having the psychological feeling that they have a progression within the game. So they're spending more time playing because they have a story, they have a content behind it. So I think that there's this element between retention and maximization of the revenues in the iOS sphere will be definitely an important part in the future of the hyper casuals.
And
I agree.
Interesting
agree
to
with
see.
you there. Yeah. Balancing.
Jovi was first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good.
Okay, Jovi, you first, and then Alexandra. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was mentioning I 100% agree with you, Shalom. Balancing the quantity of the ads and the intrusiveness of the ads will definitely help keep the users engaged in playing these games. It's very expensive. It's going to be very expensive, even more expensive to acquire the users, and you want to keep them as long as possible. And these users can churn, and they can see so many ads at one time. All these hyper casual games, you watch the rewarded video, then you watch the counter go by, and then after the counter goes by, then you see the end card, and then there's a counter on the end card, right? So a lot of these users can get very tired of these ads. So you have to balance, intrusiveness of these performance ads, and balance them with brand ads. And this is something that is becoming a little bit more of a science and an art, but something you could do with testing. And I just think it needs to be done in order to retain these users.
Great. And this is where exactly closing the loop gets the mediation, the A/B testing, and the analytics into the game.
Alexandra?
No, I was just going to say that something interesting to watch for in the next couple of weeks is, I just had a lot of hyper casual clients, and with the acquisition by AppLovin, I believe that those clients won't really like their data being potentially shared with Lion Studios. So it's going to be an interesting competition between, Tenjin, AppsFlyer, and Singular, and a lot of opportunities for them to gain those hyper casual companies back. And I'm really looking forward to see what's going to happen there.
Carol?
I can only hope you're right, Alexandra. But to react to Shalom also about the retention, what people will manage to do if the CPI effectively stay high, but I doubt so, I think the CPI will also drop, is they will try to recycle the user, like in their network or app. Even if the retention is quite low in one app, they will just cross-promote and move the user without needing to pay again for this install to their other game, just so that they can increase the monetization of this specific user.
Oh, yeah. Also, I myself can add that the state is looking more and more into gaming industry and hyper casual gaming as well, and we're getting a lot of cases which add new streams and new approaches to hyper casual gaming game development. For example, as you know, that cloning is already an issue. In some cases, And this year, the presidents were created in United Kingdom and some other countries when cloning was actually brought to court, and it was a successful case. So it's a green light for indie developers not to be afraid to go to bigger publishers, to mediators, not too afraid to lose their idea, because to my point of view, it's one of the most dangerous parts of the industry where idea means the most and can be stolen the easiest. And more measures will be put to protect the indie developer and users as well, because after last year, more people going into it, more people going digital, online, and states were forced to evolve with their citizens to be brought to the next level, and legal moments as well. Legal system goes online as well, and they're finding issues. They're bringing it to life, and gaming industry will get a lot of changes and gets a lot of changes already. But now we're finally breaking. Already, CD Projekt is now under surveillance and under investigation. The quality of the product, quality assurance will be checked state-wise as well, controls in some countries, and of course you will be able to protect your IP finally. And of course, it's nice to have free art, to be able to copy and to unite copies and stuff. It's something we build on. Many games created on copying mechanics, and it's very dangerous. How will this hyper casual affect other industries? Because if one mechanic can be defended, then we can kill many Diablo type action RPGs altogether. It's very interesting how it will play out, and how we will be affected by it. And of course, the topics of the games, in some countries, some aspects are illegal, and this year it was a record year for getting the most limits on the topics and things you could have in the game, visual wise and so on, because legal system is looking more into game industry, so we could have some surprises there as well, and requirements. Yeah. Well, that's we can talk some more, and we got one question from audience, which is interesting and something not the best to end our panel on. Maybe we'll have something more fun. Our audience is asking us to share our biggest fear about future of advertising in hyper casual games, which is okay. Let's share our fears, and let's hope that we're wrong about them.
CPMs will go down. That's the biggest fear, right?
Yeah. Nationalizing of internet throughout the world. Yes.
Well, yeah, that makes sense, right? The games will go down, which is something completely opposite from what we saw this year, right? The games exploded this year. They exploded. Everyone's home. Everyone's looking for something to do. Everyone's playing games. It's fantastic. The amount of time spent on the game and the amount of time people spent playing this year is fantastic. And that's how inventory exploded, right? Inventory exploded. Advertisers jumped on board. They're hungry for even more. They're hungry for even more this year. They know what they're getting now. They know what audience they can capture, and they're looking forward to that. So no, it would be horrible if we lost all these users, but I don't think that's going to happen. People are making more games. People know that they're there now. People can play these games very easily. They're looking for that inventory. They're looking to increase their user sessions to have even more ad inventory. So I think it's going to explode even more.
Anyone else?
For me, the biggest fear is what I mentioned at the beginning, that you can't find an independent ad network anymore, and that even if you want to bid on the highest value user, you're kind of being blocked because this ad network would keep such user for their own games. I think that's a very big fear for a lot of the hyper-casual studio today.
And okay, and another question we have, as nobody is stopping us, so let's do it. Of course, it's a question rather relatively easy for all of us, but I guess they want us to answer it. Has GDPR caused an impact on analytics, data collection, and advertising? Well, we all know that it definitely did.
It did, but it's nothing compared to iOS 14, right? So like, GDPR was a big deal at the time, but now it looks like something very small. I really think the biggest thing is iOS 14, right? And the fact that you cannot collect IDFAs and get data at the user level, much more than GDPR. I don't know, guys, if you agree, but
yeah, it was almost like a practice ground for people. And the biggest difficulty at the time of GDPR was the technical implementation of having this pop-up. What do you put in the pop-up to encourage the user to allow you to track them? And because GDPR was quite flexible on the pop-up, the text, how it looks like, people managed to make it quite integrated in their app, and they didn't lose a lot of users saying, I don't consent and I don't want you to collect my data. And it, unlike with iOS 14, where the average, what we see is that because by default, you won't be tracking, so only 20% of a user might actually opt in and authorize you.
I think that also to correlate to the previous question, this is maybe the fear, and also with GDPR, it's more regulation involvement. The more we'll see regulation involvements across many different countries, it can definitely impact the advertising and the monetization and the entire space. So this is what's the balance between having, we hear what happens with Facebook, of course, and other companies with regulations. So the more we hear about this topic, will definitely can in different cases, different aspects impact our industry.
Okay, another question we've got. Do you see monetization methods changing, modeling things like Apple Arcade? For example, platforms with a monthly subscription and so on.
Okay, I can take it. Yes and no. And the answer is maybe a maybe. It depends on so many variables. It depends on so many user preferences. Some of the users are definitely interested, to pay $10, not seeing advertisements, and maybe continue playing the games. While others do engage with the ads. We do see engagement. Eventually, this business wouldn't exist if we didn't see ROAS, if we didn't see ROI on brand investments. And this exists because there's a value, because this industry creates a value. And therefore, I would say yes and no. Not everyone wants to pay from one hand, and from another hand, the people do still want to engage with ads. It creates a better environment when you're playing and you see something that you really like, and you wanna maybe go and buy or download a new game. So and we see also a lot failed cases in which a subscription model did not necessarily succeed. So I would say it's too early to judge.
There was a tendency a couple of years ago with all the blockchain and cryptocurrencies popping out. They tried to move into into mobile gaming somehow. Is there a tendency of them moving into hyper casual gaming and somehow getting into advertising or somehow monetization via cryptocurrencies in hyper casual market?
I remember, a year or two ago, I heard a lot about crypto games, but to be honest, we haven't seen much in the hyper casual industry in our customer base.
Yeah. Well, thanks goodness. Yeah, in a lot of countries, industries are very, let's say, try to keep away. Gaming industries are keeping away from blockchain and cryptocurrency markets. So they create new segments of game industry because people don't want to associate, somehow see it as a whole different thing. Yeah. So. Okay, we have Vlad here. It means coffee break finally will start. And thank you very much for your attention. And here were our wonderful speakers, which are Shalom Mikhaeli from Fyber, Alexandra Palacci from BidShake, Carol from Tenjin, and Joby, Global Head of Development from InMobi, and me, Yaroslav Kovacs from GD, and our moderator Vlad, who is bringing us home and to our senses right now. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thanks, HGC.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Pleasure meeting you all.
Stay safe. Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Great to chat with you. Chat with you more, hopefully.